Hey guys, this is Huggy from Team Omega, coming at you with a video on basic game mechanics. I find there are a lot of players out there really lacking in knowing just simple things that take the game from just playing Vanguard to having a competitive good game against a good opponent. First thing I want to talk about is early game guarding. The thing I see a lot of time at my locals and a lot of players in general is when they go and your opponent's attacking you early game, they're on grade 1, grade 2, and they have a rear guard and it swings for 7 to your 7k grade 1. A lot of players think, oh, it's just early, I don't need to guard yet, let the damage through. When really, something that a lot of players need to start taking into consideration is that letting that attack through could be a 20,000 to guard rear guard row later on in the game that you can let through if you just drop a 5k shield, whether it be a draw trigger or just that extra grade 1 you kept in your hand because you didn't want to call it to the front. It's better to get rid of that and draw into them later than to be taking that early damage when, like I said, having a rear guard come at you with 26,000 and oh crap, I can't guard this, and you lose the game because of it. Vanguard, taking it to a competitive level, is hugely about small details that change the game from playing for fun and, like I said, playing competitively. So guarding rear guards early, huge help, huge bonus, especially if you've got the extra shield in hand to do so. Another thing is making proper columns. I'll be at my locals and I'll be playing players and I'll see them put out something like this right here. This is a blaster blade for all of you who really want to know. Just basic field setup to help explain a lot of stuff. And they'll call this, but instead of having this 7k here, they'll call a 5k. And on the other side, they'll have their 12k attacker boosted by a 7k. Well, it's just as simple as putting 12k here in front of the 5k and the 9k over here in front of your 7, hitting 16 and 17, both 10 to guard columns instead of having 5 to guards. Or saving the cards in your hand. If you don't have a proper booster for your card, keep it in your hand. Don't make another column just to hope for an extra attack or an extra little hit. Unless you're really in a bad situation and need to put a bit of pressure, there's no need to make weak columns and have to just replace them later on when you can make a 10 to guard column consistently later on in the game. Puts a lot more pressure on your opponent than just having a 5 to guard stuck there and not being able to change it because you don't want to waste the cards in your hand. Next thing I want to get at is attack order. So, coinciding with the making proper columns, if you're sitting with your field like this, but say you're 12k attacker, we're going to pretend Blaster Blade is 12k because he's OP, but you're 12k attacker over here and no booster over here either, and this is a 9k. If you're looking at your opponent's field, if they've got full field and 9k grade 2 and 9k grade 2s with their 11k Vanguard, attacking in a certain order will benefit you more than just all out to Vanguard, because right now these aren't going to hit. This will hit Vanguard, but if he damage checks a trigger, this is useless. This isn't hitting Vanguard at all. So going off and starting first by attacking with your 9k to another 9k in the front row, that is wasting a 5k shield, guaranteed. It's either they're guarding the attack using cards in their hand, or they're losing that interceptor. So there's no downside to attacking that rear guard, especially if you don't have the booster anyways. At least you're plussing somehow. Then attacking with your 12k to Vanguard. Because like I just said, if they get a trigger on the damage check from here, well, it's not hitting anyway, so you might as well make sure they're wasting at least a 5k shield, and not, oh, now that doesn't hit. So attack order is huge. If there are attacks that won't hit for a certain reason, or if triggers can change it so that they aren't going to hit, attack with them first. Don't always have to attack with Vanguard just because he's stronger and you want to pump up your rear guards with triggers. Because another thing that happens at locals and happens with a lot of players is they rely on the triggers. You'll attack with Vanguard, rely on triggers to make these stronger, and then you'll drive check grade 3 and a grade 1. Now these are weak and they pull a damage check trigger, and these are now both useless. These are wasted. Instead of wasting resources and wasting attacks, get these little guys off first. At least poke for 5k shield. Another thing I want to talk about that also goes with attacking is who you're going to attack. In the end, after you do all your attacks and you're ready to go, and say they did get that damage check trigger, but you still got a 10 to guard row, or what would be a 10 to guard row. Now their Vanguard is, say, 16, this is now only 5. Well, instead of wasting an attack to Vanguard that could give them 1 extra counterblast to activate their skills, or just waste a 5k shield in hand, you might as well attack a rear guard, because 1, it's now 10 to guard if you attack the rear guard, and it's going to waste the same 5k shield that they would have dropped anyways, and possibly eliminate an attack for you next turn if they don't have a replacement. Other than that, everything's pretty basic on who to attack. Usually, all I'm really trying to say is if you can make an attack to Vanguard for 10 to guard, make it. If it's only going to be 5 anyways, attack your rear guard, possibly eliminate an attack against you next turn, saving you shield in hand, which is really what this game comes down to, is being able to guard your opponent's big plays and their big attacks. Because if you can't, then you lose. So eliminating attacks when it would only be a 5k shield against their Vanguard anyways is really good, really important, and I strongly suggest it. Moving on to the next topic, which is timing your skills properly. Going off too really early and getting your stuff, like being able to force your skills, isn't always a good thing. Rushing it and getting your skill off first is not always beneficial to you. What you really want to do is wait and save your big plays and your big skills for opportune moments. Personally, I play Nebula Lord Link Joker a lot, and that deck is the definition of using your skills at the right time. If you go off too early, then you fizzle, because in that deck you can only lock down the field maybe once or twice, and if you do it too early, your opponent can stop it, you're grinding out the rest of the game, and it's a really bad thing, and it happens to a lot of players. So using resources at the proper times is huge. Say a good example is Dote Dauntless. That deck, when it comes to turn 3, riding to grade 3, making the choice between Dauntless or Dote is huge. If you're at, say, 3 damage, and you've got the 2 face-up counterblasts, and your opponent's at 4, your better option, yes, you can ride Dote and hope to get his skill off, but if your opponent's already at 4 damage, riding Dauntless is your better option. Whereas if your opponent's at 3 damage and you've got the counterblasts, and you have a good chance of getting off Dote's skill, Dote's your better option because he can go +1 where Dauntless is bringing you a -1. Dauntless makes up for it in the fact of the shield you're wasting out of their hand. But in the end, getting the end skill off, punny, is a lot more beneficial to you because it's still the 2 attacks and it's plussing you. Whereas instead of if you rode Dauntless, it would minus you. Like I said, another option is Link Joker, or a good example is Link Joker. When your opponent's at 3 damage or 4 damage, break riding Nebula Lord, not such a great idea. Because yes, your rear guards are going to be huge. Yes, it's going to be great to go off, but if you wait that 1 extra turn, push them to 5, well then it's game ending. Same with Descendant. The meta deck for Descendant with Descendant and Gauntlet Buster. Knowing when to ride Descendant is huge. Knowing when you have the resources to counterblast 2 and retire something with Gauntlet Buster's skill and still be able to use Descendant efficiently is huge. So timing is a really important thing, and main point I'm trying to get at is don't rush it. Don't let yourself get to 4 fast just so you can use your skills. It's not always a good thing. It's generally really actually a bad thing. So all in all, everything kind together, guard easy attacks early because in the end it's wasting it's saving your ass in general, not having to guard that 20 to guard, or not having to guard that huge Nebula Lord play or Spike Brothers play. It's hugely important, and waiting and going off after your opponent with your big play at the right time is what's going to win you games. Other than that, only other thing I really want to talk about is proper guarding and when you would be overguarding when you're not. Big thing to pay attention to is how many triggers your opponent's seen and knowing the decks you're playing against. If you're playing a deck you know runs 12 crit and say you've seen 3 of their heals and 6 of their crit in a and they're attacking with Vanguard to Vanguard, you're at 4 damage. Well, a deck running 12 crit against you in that scenario, well, they still got 6 crits left. So guarding for no pass is a good idea. Whereas a regular basic deck that only runs 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal, well, if they've gone through 6 crit already, you can go 2 to pass safely. Other than that, really play smart and always pay attention to your opponent, because their field, their drop zone, and their soul is just as important, and their turn in general is just as important to pay attention to as yours. And other than that, all I have to say is good luck, play smart, and go Team Omega.